in case you haven't, I'll go over everything again. So, first of all, we'll do a lot of reading messages. If you're a voice, please keep your microphone muted until iMonk calls out your name. He's going to be in charge of directing who gets to talk when and moving the conversation forward. So, if your name is not called out, just wait your turn. If you have something to say about the current topic, type X. If you want to specifically reply to what someone else is saying, please type Y. That way we know that whatever you want to say is maybe not going to be relevant in another topic. The topics we have prepared for today's outro are feedback from the subreddit, specifically in regards to what you feel is okay to post, what can be posted critically on the subreddit, and some topics about this Discord server. First of all, about the ranked system, we've had it in place for a few months now, and we'd like to know how you feel about it, if you're having fun, if you're thinking to become a bot regularly, etc. And general feedback about the server. Is there anything you'd like to see, like on the channel, a different direction for anything, etc. If there's anything that isn't covered by those topics, we're going to have some space for other questions or other sort of feedback at the end, which you will be able to use if your topic hasn't come up yet. That's all for the explanation. The first topic we're going to be talking about, that I'm also going to call out in the chat now, so after I do that, please respond with X if you have something to say, is subreddit feedback. Okay.
Okay, I guess we'll start with Astral then.
Hello?
Yeah, how's it going? Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, I guess the main thing, I guess people are talking about this a lot. I'm just I feel like there's still a lack of introductory resources. So basically every time we see a post that says, I want to build a new deck, here's my deck, I'm completely new to this format, people just type the same paragraph saying here's the stuff. It would be nice if someone just actually collected one. I know we have Raz's stuff from 2015, but that's 3 years ago, and it would be really nice if we had more introductory resources.
So just more of a question here. Is that more of in the context of availability of introductory resources and making them more obvious to find? Or is it more so on the end of just having more in general?
I think it's a function of both. So I feel like we do have some introductory resources, but there aren't that many of them, and not all of them are very recent. A lot of them aren't very recent. But the other thing is, because of the subreddit the Reddit redesign, it's just really hard for people to find them right now. I'm not sure what can be done on that front, but at least in the front of having introductory resources people can link when they reply, I feel like we can make progress there.
So we have been making an effort towards getting more introductory resources being produced, and along with that production, we're working on ways of compiling them. It's more of a problem of just completing those writings, because this is a hobby thing. It's difficult to motivate people to get things completed that could be used as resources, and people have work and other things like that. So, it's we would really like to have more introductory resources, but we need those to be finished first so we can compile them.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Would someone from that has more administrative power on the sub like to comment?
Yeah, pretty much is how it is. Reddit redesign is awful and it's hard to find things, but we're going to be looking into ways of making the resources we have more apparent, along with introducing some new resources that are desperately needed.
Yeah, it has been an active kind of pursuit of the mod team currently that we get those resources produced and put them in a place that will be accessible for the community. So it's very much something that we are considering and working on. I think is that satisfying? Would someone else like to believe? If no one wanted to tag onto Astral, we can move on to Leptis wants to. Okay, cool. So Leptis, you have the floor.
Yes, I have something to say about not specifically the contents of introductory resources, but the general visibility. Part of it is mainly due to the Reddit rework that has happened quite recently, but there's also the fact that for Reddit Mobile, for instance, which is a very popular form of looking up things on Reddit because usually people want to read on the go or and so on and so on. They never even get to see the Reddit, the subreddit rules section because it's kind of a hassle to, go to the upper right hand corner and see community info, blah 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 blah. I know many of you know that it's kind of unintuitive to look up for mobile, for example, which is why there's a one option for increasing visibility of must-read introductory CDH content would be to just, for example, have a sticky post on the Reddit, one of the stickies to have read this before you start posting here, for example. But yeah, that was my 2 cents on that matter.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, we'll definitely work on adapting to the update and making things more visible. Like information being available to the community has been placed as a priority for the mod team. So I can definitely appreciate wanting things to be more visible. All right, so I believe if that okay, so we have Jim next on the redesign topic.
Yeah, so this might be like the hottest of takes right now, but maybe if it's that bad of a redesign, just not use Reddit and just like try and move towards Salvation or some other competitive oriented subreddit, forum posting sources. Yeah, not really that serious about this one. Like post the new player content on places where it's actually accessible and visible.
I mean, we could talk about expanding the places in which we post, but I don't really see us leaving the subreddit. I don't think that's within the community's goals.
Let's see. Maynard wanted to reply to that as well. Let's
yes.
hear what he has to say. Yeah, making a sub-wiki is something I do want to do, and I can guarantee you that we're going to look into doing that and find ways of getting it online. Is your question also in relation to the Reddit redesign and that placement of information?
No, I was just gonna tag on top of the bit about just the sticky at the top. I think just that would be a huge help. And the second thing is just honestly just a sticky linking to even just the wiki that we currently have would be helpful. But I think that once the Reddit chat integration is actually finished up, I think it'll be a lot easier for people to get access to those resources. My question was more so just with regards to where to start. I think just not necessarily a wiki, but just linking. I think just a more evident link to the Discord would be helpful, and then just having some means of pointing people in the right direction from there. I think just like some kind of roadmap as opposed to just saying, oh, just go to the wiki.
Okay.
Yeah, those are good suggestions. So I believe Maynard has the next topic.
Did
You cut out in the middle
Okay.
when you were describing the divide initially.
Oh, okay. So I'll also kind of say that I think overwhelmingly people in the subreddit want to see more content, and adding some kind of structure to how we put out content. Obviously, it's a lot to ask for people voluntarily putting out stuff, but there are a lot of different series that kind of tackle a lot of really really interesting subjects for people looking to get in the format, like budget deck building, or like the brews rundown that we had lately. Articles about deck building, articles about the metas, and card reviews, right? New decks. So I think we need to create some sort of structure to putting out things on the regular. things like asking people to do deck techs and state of the deck style posts. Things like asking people to, give overviews of brew ideas. One of the things I suggested was in a post about like a fringe strategy that you find interesting, and taking a few steps to explore it, get some rough sketches on it, ideas of what it does well and what it doesn't do well, pros cons to the thing that you want to explore. But yeah, just we need to be putting out more, not to say just content, but stuff that's interesting and not this, and instead of just having the front page be nothing but deck help posts with the same kind of canned answers over and over again.
Yeah, I mean, having more quality content would be great. And you kind of alluded to this while you were asking your question. It's kind of an involved thing. And so even with like a system of voluntary structures, it will be, I think, a worthy venture, but a difficult one to consistently put out that quality content. But I think it's definitely worth looking into. Definitely agree with that. So we have Jim that wants to tack on to this question.
Hey, this one is super about and it's like a lack of like readable like videos where they can tune it out and treat it as readable text content. It's not just deck building, it's just like gameplay, very thought heavy gameplay, and just sort of cyber specifically ways just extremely difficult for people. So the kind of time that we're actually going to need is, hey, here's how to not mess up this totally winnable scenario. Don't mess it up again. Or like, hey, this is a really common play pattern, and it means they have X, Y, and Z in their hand, stuff like that. I have ideas in mind, but like, I need to find examples, which I just don't have the time to like go for. So if you want to send me gameplay moments where you think there's like relevancy, sure, I'd be fine descriptions, but like other than that, just like too tired right now. That's it though.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Would anyone else like to comment on this topic? Please type a Y. It seems like that's it on this topic. I think we can move on to New Fiend.
Yeah, so I noticed that our community doesn't really have any form of Twitch presence. Even if we could do like a Twitch to YouTube, if we had any fillers in our community, because I feel that we could put out content that way, which might help bridge the gap between some of our other content producers. Even on the Play EDH Discord, sorry. Like just
yeah, they're getting more Twitch, getting a bigger Twitch presence would be nice. Just that our format has a lot of presentability limitations.
Yep, understandably.
Yeah, but I think looking into getting more video content could be something that we could look towards.
Maynard, you wanted to say something about video content?
Yeah, I've been trying to put up Play EDH VODs, and I think there are people interested in streaming it. The main thing that needs to happen for streaming to work is you need regularity, and most Play EDH members can't really support that, especially given like the times that games fire. It's pretty late in the night, so you're not going to get many viewers anyways. Scotty seems to be pretty successful in growing that, and we should try to support that. If we had more regularity on Play EDH, I think that's something we can look into, establishing times and days at which people are specifically interested in playing. But we should be looking to grow existing, I guess, specifically Scotty's stream. And if we can arrange a specific time and day that we can regularly get games firing, we can do sort of a Lab Maniacs community stream style, and have a lot more people playing. Even if the whole stream isn't competitive EDH, even if it's a mix of mid, casual, high-powered EDH and competitive EDH, getting people watching anyways, that's what's going to be important.
Yeah, supporting existing content creators is very important, especially if the content is of good quality. So it's a good point.
Yeah,
All right.
I also like to see some of the people doing streams and yeah.
So I guess this is more of a question, but it's if we can facilitate ideas for writing and gameplay video creation, how do we try to ensure that we will get people making content? It's obviously a very voluntary thing and it takes a lot of work, and I mean not so much work that it takes hours or anything. You can write an article reasonably in 2 hours maybe, but how do we get time? How do we get people who aren't necessarily mentors or just people around the community to try to give input and come up with ideas and create things that are worth looking at for the community?
That is a very good question. Not really one I can answer on this right now. I think a good way would be to like show people that doing stuff in leadership in terms of how we completely encourage them to put themselves out there for patrons. And frankly, not sure if that's
I mean, yeah.
anyone of the people that have been present would like to try, then yes, please, by all means, do.
Yeah, what I would recommend is that if you, because it's very common for play groups to form within communities. So if you have a play group that plays CDH, and you guys regularly meet, you might want to consider recording some of your sessions. And if you do that and want to improve on the quality, I'm sure like people would be willing to give constructive criticism and facilitate in making those productions better. So that's a consideration. I believe Sick Robot wanted to comment on this as well.
Yeah, so just replying to Lobster on figuring out ways to encourage content creation. I think an avenue for that could possibly be adding incentives on either the Discord or Reddit communities. I mean, not necessarily monetary incentives, but things like adding roles and special things like that, just to encourage people to actually get in on it and to give them some amount of encouragement and making them feel acknowledged for creating that content, and just giving them more publicity, I guess. I think some way we could also do this is have like threads go up from mentors or mods in the subreddit talking about new content creation or people that you should be paying attention to if they are making content.
I think like giving a special role to would definitely be a good move. I've seen some other Discords from other hobbies do that. It's quite good. But also like helps show that the creators that content are accessible, so to say, if you're part of that community.
So sick, just for clarification, this would be something similar to, like, at least if we're doing the Reddit thread thing, it would be similar to like the people of the week that WotC does in terms of content stuff that they do.
Yeah, I'd say something like that, where like you just basically like acknowledging people that have created content and making sure that you're. I'd say like a big part of it is making sure that you're making content creators feel encouraged, but also that you're validating their content by just saying like, hey, from the people in this community, we approve this, and we want anybody that's interested to go watch this because we think it's good content, and we want to encourage it more.
All those are great ideas. Would anyone else like to comment on the content discussion? Please type a Y. All right, fine.
Oh, in a similar vein here. Sorry about that. In a similar vein, because this is content and other things like that, and we want primers published and similar things, this is just more of a general announcement kind of thing. Due to recent kind of issues we've been finding with Tapped Out and other in that platform, with just how slow it is and some other various other tidbits and other things like that, we've been looking for an alternative to Tapped Out. So if any of you have any suggestions that have similar primer capabilities and other nice formatting stuff, please forward it to the mentors or chat moderators or the senior moderators and above, so that we'd be able to at least look at it and see where we'd like to start migrating our content to, at least on decklist side of things.
Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned that. We are definitely looking for an alternative, so community suggestions are always welcome. All right, well, if that's it for that content discussion, I believe we can move on to the next topic, which is Maynard again.
Yes. So, sorry, am I unmuted? No, okay.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Some of the survey results, there were people who noted this fact that some of the posts on the sub don't really belong on r/competitive EDH. They're more r/EDH posts. Whereas a great number of people do support the idea of helping people who want to get better regardless of what level they're at. And I wanted to propose a set of it's hard to say like what doesn't belong, what does belong as competitive EDH. You could take Sliver Tribal and push it as far as it can go and add combos there and tutors. So my proposition was to ban posts that ask for deck help with non-combo wins. So people specifically saying they don't want to win with combo. Ban posts that ask for help with LGS, league point rules, that kind of thing, or any other house rules. Even though historically there are like ways of saying these are the rules, these are the restrictions that were given, we can try to make something that abuses them as much as possible. I don't think the spirit of the LGS rules really should be getting people to looking to abuse them, right? That's not why they're there. and it also just makes it very hard to help.
If I may interject, we do actually have specific against those two exact things. They are already not permitted on the sub, but every once in a while those just exist.
Yeah,
So
I do see them removed quite regularly. I think getting that guideline more visibly would be good for the subreddit, just to help people understand where they're at, right?
yeah, I do think that's part of like making introductory resources more visible. In theory, we do have it like straight in the sidebar in our rules, which is frankly the only thing you can see in the sidebar. But people are generally not expecting that. So yeah, it should definitely be restated and say a subject like some sort of introductory sticker post, etc.
I believe we had Jim wanting to comment on this topic.
Yeah. One of the things that I've seen happen we start using hey, I can't afford to reserve this shit. It's anyway. And then more like, hey, all of these systems power from my end, even though I have them. So you might need to also like tighten up how far you're willing to go to clear what you're not. Just so you're not the thing is, you might want to also like say, hey, you want to do one sometimes a little bit different, maybe make a separate template. Screen. Not like saying certain getting your need. I don't know about you guys.
The 1v1 EDH community actually looked into fun subreddit is so like spread out and productive that making a functioning if that changes in the future, then yeah, definitely. But until then,
Okay, so Maynard wants to comment on the topic as well.
So something we see right now is the front page of our subreddit is essentially all optimization. And there are a lot of people who just come here because they want help, and r/EDH isn't very useful for them. They're not getting good advice there. And I think, the approach of giving some amount of information and also recommending, or, kind of making it clear that, or just stating that, this isn't the best place to look for casual EDH help helps. But, I think we still need to remedy this problem of casuals don't really have good avenues for receiving help. And, one of my suggestions is adding this sort of mentor structure that we have over on r/EDH. Alternatively, creating a specific EDH deck help subreddit. And this has kind of been one of the suggestions I've had in the past, as problematic as it is, for addressing optimization posts on our subreddit and less in competitive decks, and people who use 75% as their baseline. So those are just two suggestions, and I think we do need to address this issue of casual players not having or not being able to receive good advice outside of our subreddit.
It's a bit tough, and from the way I see it at least, optimization was always still intended to be the type of post that is made with user in mind. So, like the decks would still many people have not used GitHub directly and thought that they can just toss anything on there, which is not intended. You're very correct about there not really being a place where they can go for it. Setting up a mentor structure over on REDH is something the mods have discussed already in the past at several points actually, but we decided against it for various reasons that I can't remember right now. One of them, I think, being that giving help for that's not that doesn't have as core of a goal as make this as good as possible is not an attitude. On top of that, it's like the community is so big that we have a tough time recognizing some of the people who contribute in a positive manner comparable to the mentors we've got on here. So it's a bit tough for me, unfortunately. I do like the idea of creating a sub that's specifically for EDH decks, though. That's, I think, something that people should look at.
Yeah, I mean,
necessarily not like from just from the competitive community, but for instance, I can talk to people and play EDH about it to see if somebody there would be interested in helping out, etc.
So it's, I think. Can I just make an interjecting comment here?
Sure. I believe it's coin, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you should
Okay.
be good.
Yeah. So it was just a thing that's relative to this, and I think that's actually what Lobster's mentioning is an absolute necessity, because if you've been noticing about what people say in their optimization posts, it's almost like they're being stuck in a purgatory, being bounced back between the subreddits, because r/EDH wants nothing to do with anything similar to what we're doing, even though maybe nowhere near what we're doing. And we don't want to have anything to do with, at least this seems to be the general sentiment of the subreddit users, not necessarily us as mentors and upper level moderators anyway. We don't necessarily want anything to do with what isn't actually absolutely competitive, or at least something in development to be that way. And that's where we have this really awkward purgatory where people are being bounced in between point A and point B, and there is no good avenue for that to actually happen, because they're trying to build these 75-ish, like that general idea decks, and there's no place for that because REDH hits them out, and then we also hit them out, so they're just kind of boned on that front.
Right. I mean, we would want to accommodate as many people as possible, but we also have to take into consideration, what is the scope of the responsibility for the sub, right? So, like, it's an interesting topic to discuss, but I think I personally like the idea of like a community meant for optimization. You could even extend that to brewing decks, so just a community around building decks. Just in general, EDH decks, and I think that kind of community would also be able to kind of fit optimization under its umbrella. So, I believe we had average. You wanted to speak?
Yeah, I just wanted to interject that on r/EDH we have started taking a more firm stance against people sort of being like, this sort of content isn't belong here. But I do agree with the idea that it's not necessarily the most productive place if you're trying to get high power deck advice, just simply because you'll find a void of people that are sort of trying to tune for that level.
I mean that is a potential. Right? But I think given enough time, people will be able to acclimate to the social changes necessary to allow for a more accommodating environment. Yeah, I like the idea of building a mentor system as well, ASN.
Yeah.
I believe Leftist wanted to comment on this as well.
Yeah, I have a few unprepared words for the less than or more on the casual or more lenient sides of deck optimization or deck help. There's the fact that there are so many decks that are in their most optimized state, and they're optimized for the play group they're playing in, and there are tons and tons and tons of play groups with tons and tons of different power levels. And yeah, there's a large percentage of people who don't get turned to CDH subreddit from the REDH subreddit and vice versa. And yeah, there are so-called power levels as many as there are play groups, so it can be very difficult due to groupthink of these two communities to accommodate everything that falls in between. So, and yes, it takes a lot of extra resources for mentors, for example, to kind of get a feel for people who are looking for help with a deck, because they first have to see, okay, what's this play group about? What's the meta game? What's the counter for this deck? And in the end, even might not even work unless you have first-hand experience with that metagame or playgroup. So it's it can be very very difficult. Is what I'm saying. But yeah, that was all I had to say.
Well, thank you, Lexus. Would anyone else like to comment on this topic, or does anyone have another topic they'd like to discuss? All right, Jim.
So I'm pretty sure this is a terrible idea for interactive recording. I don't even know. It's contextualized already. It's what gets the rules, and if you genuinely think that I can get better help for some sort of strategy with EDH, that's not inherently bad. The issue is just that a lot of people then come too competitive EDH with different, like, yeah, with different expectations. So when it comes to
Okay, so I believe we can move on to our next topic, which is Maynard.
Yeah, so something that people have noticed, people are generally very positive on their experiences receiving help on the subreddit, particularly with mentors. However, and I think I think mentors especially notice this. There is a lot of misinformation, bad advice, bad suggestions, and I don't want to say bad, but because to the people making them, they're probably good ideas, right? But it's a very tricky issue to handle moderating advice and suggestions, and sometimes I'll try to, respond to one saying this is probably not the best idea. You probably shouldn't be running this card. For example, when someone says put Chains of Mephistopheles in your Una deck or something like that, it's a powerful card, but if you think about it, it probably doesn't fit that well. Regardless, I think we need to address being able to moderate the quality of advice given, particularly from random members in the community, and I think those are often the people that we get complaints about attitudes and toxicity from, is from various members of the community who aren't particularly involved in giving advice, but will pop in to say that your deck's probably garbage or something, or that card you're asking about is probably garbage.
Do you have an idea how it done?
I think
Should we just delete those posts even if they're genuinely trying to give advice?
I think that problem will kind of address itself as we introduce the kind of baseline content. If you make the CDH fundamental content or the deck building advice content more accessible, if you build the knowledge base of your players, you can allow them the opportunity to make informed decisions without restricting who has the capacity to give advice. And if you have a vocal, group of people who are considered to be positive voices within the community, that also helps. So I think that once you start instituting the kind of base level changes that we want to start instituting, we'll see a community that will be better equipped to be prepared for misinformation, I guess, is what I'm trying to get at. Maynard, you'd like to respond?
This is just a one thought, but would people generally be against having a heavier moderation policy on the subreddit, more active removing or just calling out poor tone or just poor advice, and more active removal of simple questions, because quality of posts has also been a concern?
I would like to add something to that. If you think that something is either bad advice or bad tone, even if it's not like strictly against the rules, etc., feel free to report this. It's much easier for moderators to look at it that way. They can go to a log queue and check out there. Even if something is strictly against the rules, we can still delete it if it doesn't fit with the overall quality of person like achieving the set. So don't feel free to give it another
Thank you, Lobster. Would anyone like to comment on this topic or introduce another topic? Please type Y if you'd like to comment. X if you'd like to introduce another one. Astral Codex, you have the floor. Okay. Oh.
feel free to type.
Yeah, you can you can type it out if you need to. I can
Yeah. Yep. Does this work?
Yeah, you're good.
Yes. Sorry. Sometimes Discord won't let me talk. I have to like. I'm kind of worried about there are still concerns about censorship. And I'm just curious if people have plans for any sort of more transparent this is why this post was removed features. Imagine if I'm a new person who isn't familiar with the meta, and then I come here and I post, and then my post just gets removed. I'm confused by what happened, and I might not a bath or something.
Unless your post is like obviously zero effort, something immediately found by just taking a look at simple sidebar, then we usually try to give you the reason for why your post has been removed.
For comments?
For comments, not as much, but we generally don't remove. We generally remove far less comments than we remove full threads.
Yeah, typically, if there's a comment removal, it's because if the person's being toxic or just really aggressive somewhere, and they know why it's being removed. And usually, there's a separate message involved, warning of their behavior, things like that. We rarely have to remove comments for like misinformation.
I think Astral's point is that if we do start to remove comments based on their quality, will there be an appropriate increase in like transparent behavior to go along with it?
Yeah, of course. You know, we don't have enough. We don't have enough traffic on the subreddit to just new posts and not say anything to anybody. You know, I imagine if we had 1 million people and we're getting hundreds of posts an hour, I can imagine trying to sort through all of that would be quite difficult. But we have the time to at least send a message to somebody and be like, hey, you know, post was moved. Here's why. It might not be the most detailed message in the world, but at the very least, we will explain the basics of why they posted. You know, if that completely dissuades them from participating in the community, then that kind of person's going to find a reason one way or another to not play around. But if we want better quality, there's going to have to be back and forth.
That makes sense. Cool.
Okay, thank you, Shake. Would anyone else like to comment on this topic, or can we move on to next?
Cool. I think that's actually a good subject, Mike. Should we increase the number of rotating posts, and if so, what should those posts be? For instance, I personally I think the simple thread for having people ask about suggestions for commanders or full decks might be a good idea. Those are, in my opinion, some pretty actually quality posts on the entire subreddit. Yet there's a distance to the demand to have those questions answered. The mental number thread is, I don't think, particularly well equipped to deal with those. So creating some sort of template that people can use to make those suggest new deck posts would be useful, and maybe an easy way to do it everybody. This would also allow us to the sub.
Yeah, that's a good point, Lobster. Is there anyone else who would be like to move on to the next topic? All right, average.
So, I don't know if this is just the impression that I get, but I feel like since, as Mark just said, the suggest me a deck posts, like a lot of us don't really enjoy them and they're low quality content. But I feel like dedicating a specific weekly thread wouldn't necessarily give a better place for that to happen, since just as a concept, weekly threads have a little less visibility than the normal posts. And so I feel like it would almost, instead of really fixing the problem, it would be more like almost an excuse to get rid of the suggest me a commander post while also taking visibility away from the Fridays and and then for Mondays. And
Yeah, I mean, right, and it really depends on how involved of a process you want it to be for the community, right? You can blanket remove those posts and just be like, and we can work on getting more primers and stuff out so that people can just go look at the list of primer decks and see which one, based on their description, fits the kind of deck that they want. It really depends on what kind of experience you want the person to go through when they're trying to find your information. All right, so please type a Y if you'd like to continue commenting on this topic, or an X if you'd like to suggest another topic. I agree with pointing people to the Discord for deck suggestions as well. I think it's a much better resource than the sub. Okay, yeah, right. Astral.
So I feel like one of the strengths of the Reddit is posts are more like, right, like if you make a thread, it stays there for 5 days. So if someone for like 2 or 3 days, depending on how much traffic you have, and if how good it is. Versus on Discord, if someone has a long conversation about this and it's pretty good, it just sort of fades away as soon as the next conversation happens.
I think that's a fair point.
So I'm kind of worried about all the threads which are like help me with Jericho or like help me with Edric. And then we just like if we ask for help once to the Discord, then what happens is like there's just lots and lots of posts of people like asking for help on the Discord. While like if they're just like you might only have one every 2 or 3 days on the subreddit because people look at the other posts.
I mean, if you're just getting more traffic to the Discord for help, though, then that information circulates to people more readily as well. So I think it doesn't necessarily have to be people having to rehash stuff over and over again. I believe that there's probably going to be a period where you would have to do that, and then there will be a general kind of understanding of what is and isn't commonly discussed. Would anyone else like to comment on this? Would someone like to introduce a new topic? All right, so I think it might be time to move on from the subreddit discussion. If there are like no new topic suggestions, I think we can move on to ranked feedback. Just the looking for game feedback in general. So if anyone would like to address this topic, please. Right. We've got Maynard.
Yeah, so one of the things that has started becoming an issue, I mean, Ranked has been firing like rapid fire lately, and that leaves LFG open, LFG practice kind of behind. And I don't think that's like a bad thing. I would love, it'd be great if everyone was just open and playing ranked games all the time, but there are times when people want to play less serious or less stressful, I guess, games without anything on the line or having to worry about falling on the leaderboard. And we have seen people looking for LFG Open and LFG Practice, and the problem is there aren't enough for these queues to fire specifically for each. You might have 2 people looking for LFG Open or 2 people looking for LFG Practice. And what you have are people, you just have these people consolidating, and it's almost like we just have 2 queues rather than 3, which might be, what we have to do. Or it might be like we do just need to be stricter on queuing specifically for one of the 2, rather than just saying I'm going to play this deck and I don't care if I get open or practice. But I'd like to hear what people who have experience looking for those sort of games feel.
Would anyone like to comment on this topic? Astro.
Really the same problem. Like, if I want to learn a new deck, I don't want to risk my internet points for them. But I would still like to play with people on this Discord instead of on public things. Feels kind of very hard to get that unless it's also true that other people want to try it on new deck. And so what you end up happening on LFG Practice or LFG Open is 3 or 4 people trying out new decks. Maybe like 1 person trying out like the normal deck, and then it's not actually like good practice for ranked or something. LFG Practice, you see people just like jamming new decks, right? It's not, you want to practice getting more time, like playing their decks. I feel like that's hard to get unless you're willing to lose points on that.
So I guess the question becomes like, why is this something that needs to be regulated? Isn't that kind of like a discussion that you can have between people that haven't been able to collect the pod? Like, is having the option, the granularity, is it harmful? I guess is my question. Like, I get they're functionally serving a similar purpose right now, but I think if the community expands and more people end up playing using that service, you'll have the granularity become more relevant.
So, in the context of this discussion, I think we might want to take one of the later topics and do it right now, because it's actually highly relevant to the nature of stuff like LFG Open. And that is, should we create a high-power Discord?
I mean, I think that's a good question. I think it's difficult to make clear definitions of what falls within that category.
I guess we can just use the definitions we have on Play EDH. I think those should be comprehensive for starters, and then if they require adjustment, you can do that. Go, please, Sig.
Yes, content and the responding to creating a high power Discord. I'm not sure that we are currently at the community size to create a high power Discord that it would necessarily be beneficial to us. I think what a good alternative could be would be to just redirect people to the play EDH high power channels, where I think we have a fairly I mean, I'm not on there enough to know 100%, but I feel like there's definitely a larger base for a high power community already, where we can just uh, refer people over there instead of creating a whole new, like a whole new Discord and then having to split a bunch of people between them and then ending up with like a split high power community that is also detracting from probably the CEH community, considering that we're probably housing a bit of the high power community here as well. Basically, I think like if it's not a problem, I think we should just start front loading more people onto the Play EDH high power channels. Just respond to Maynard in chat. I don't think we should leave it at necessarily like I think the infrastructure as is should be left in place, but I think what we could do a better job of is referring people that are high power or better, like we perceive as high power, to the Play EDH Discord instead of just saying, hey, you need to go back to r/EDH or the EDH Discord, or just giving them help that they're not exactly looking for here.
I think that's a fair point. I would be definitely in support of that kind of approach as well.
I'm absolutely fine with that. On that note, just like roughly related, a quick side question. Do you think a mentor program for Play EDH would be useful? If we want to keep in mind that we want to direct, for instance, high power people over there, then might a mentor program on there be useful to get those people the help they're looking for?
I mean, if we're going to say that EDH would benefit from a mentor-like program, I think Play EDH would benefit from one as well. If you can have mentors for a breadth of content as large as that community's, then I think it would be beneficial. Is there anyone else that would like to comment on this topic? Would you like to elaborate, Maynard, on the active discussion point? I mean, one could argue that if you add the structures, people will start utilizing them just introducing the program itself is enough to encourage people to use them. So
I guess we'll have to see, but that's enough of EDH for now.
yeah, and it depends. Yeah.
Quickly on, so creating structures for high the basic response seems to be that you shouldn't make a high server, but just look to have better ways of sending people to the right places.
Right. I think Astra wanted to make a comment.
Oh, I mean, Maynard made the comment already. I just like really do want to hear from more people. Like, I'm just curious what people who are less active on the Discord think, especially people who like frequent the sub much more than. Who wants to chime in?
Yeah, I mean it's a relatively open floor. If people would like to move off of the active topic as well, feel free to suggest a new one. Or type, yeah.
The current topic is what to do about high power.
Yeah, I was going to mention we should probably type it out because they can't hear us because I don't think any of them are connected via voice.
And the general topic is the looking for game structures, comments and feedback on the ranked system. You know, that's just the general topic. So ASM is asking whether it would be good to have a general help channel in Play EDH.
Do you mean for help beyond deck help? Because there is a channel for that. That is also accessible by every power role on the server. Deck help is available to everyone on the server that has any kind of role.
Okay, Leptis.
Just have a few words about ranked. Recently, for these couple of months, I've been relatively inactive on this Discord and on the community, and I had next to nothing to know about ranked until half a week or so. And personally, I have found it to be fantastic, which is why I want to give a high five to ASM for all his work on Xperia. That's pretty much very awesome work. And also, what I've personally witnessed is that a lot of discussion that could very well be on EDH, MTG, general, is situated on one of the LFG channels. Even some game chat that could be on game chat is in LFG ranked, or LFG ranked is probably the most active chat right now from what I've seen. So I'm not sure if there's any way, any like a decent way to direct that discussion that is not on the LFG to the other channels. But yeah, that's something that I've personally witnessed. Yeah, so far so good. I've been very impressed with daily ranked matches.
Yeah, we can have a greater enforcement of telling people to use the appropriate channels for their discussions and stuff like that. So would anyone else like to comment on the topic of ranked or the looking for game? Okay, cool. So, yeah, Worm Lover. You have the floor. You can
Just a
type out
reminder,
your
he is
responses. Yeah. Yeah, he's typing out his response. Yeah, a stricter moderation of using appropriate channels would be the solution for the discussions leading over into different channels. Um, okay, thank you, Worm. Astral, I believe you wanted to comment on this topic.
Yeah, I still feel like the rules for ranked, like if I imagine I'm a new player coming onto this server, even if I go and I'm like top, top 80 percentile or someone, and I read all the rules carefully, I know a lot about what needs to be known in ranked. Like there's the etiquette stuff, and then there's just other stuff like that. And there's also there's like more onboarding stuff that could be done inside of this server, or if there is, and I'm just not really sure how to find it. A lot of announcements, and I don't think it's fair to imagine that like everyone reads all the announcements. The ranked rules are in the announcements.
So could you elaborate a little more? What exactly are you?
So imagine I'm a new player, and I want to like join the server and get started, right? I like read all the rules. There's nothing in the rules about ranked. Actually, going through and read all the announcements to learn about ranked. Like we could add that, just add the rank stuff into the rules or into like.
Oh, into the announcements, or into the rules section.
Because right now the LFG ranks rules are inside of announcements, and I don't think it's like fair to expect that everyone reads all the announcements, given that there's quite a lot of them.
So you basically just want to consolidate.
Yeah, we could
everything about ranked into one place.
And I know like ranked has some pins, and that's like pretty good. We feel like have a lot of rules up there, but like the general rules about how to use Xperia and stuff are in announcements and aren't in the LFG rank channel or in the rules channel.
Yeah, we can definitely work on consolidating those rules and stuff. Azrael, I think, wanted to comment on that topic, so you had the floor.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right, so this is something I noticed literally like a month or two after I was in this server, and I feel at that time people should like more or less know the organization of the server. But I've noticed like I had to look something up in rules, and I couldn't find it for a long time just because it was like almost all the way at the bottom of the. Well, I'm on mobile. I don't know if it's in the same order for you guys, but almost all the way at the bottom, like right above voice chat, we have meta, which has rules, announcements, and then before today, the town hall. I feel like that's something that should be almost at the top of the list because most servers I see have rules listed on the top. Like it seems important to have easily like viewable, like one of the first things people should see.
Aren't people loaded into the rules channel first here?
I believe so.
Yeah, I think you have to do a command to get access to the rest of the server. Yeah, you have to type food for Thonk and Urberg to gain access to the general channels. So you have to, when you enter the Discord, you have to look over the rules page to even see the rest of the Discord.
It got further pushed down after we released like the ranked stuff and the different LFG channels and all of that.
But most people should be getting all of those. Like most people do food for thought, and like they should have access to all of the channels eventually. And like the thing is, like, you still have them at almost at the bottom. I don't know.
Oh, so you like still get access to the EDH channels? Okay.
Yeah.
Like
so there's a
or
thing.
here.
Yeah, so right now the way that it's currently set up is that even if you don't, you have access to the EDH channels and the looking for game channels and the LFG channels, which could be mildly problematic or useful depending on how you look at it. But I think that it would definitely be, at least in my opinion, useful to shove all the rules and announcements up to the top. Because at least on every other server I've been on, because if people want to reference something, having to scroll down to the bottom is a big pain. And just having it easily accessible, which is literally just dragging the thing, I believe, if you're upper level mod, and then that just solves the problem that, at least organization wise, it makes it more easily accessible.
Also, I feel like it could have like, if it's all going to be in their one category, I feel like it could have a different name besides meta. I don't know. I feel like that's misleading a little bit. I don't know if that could have like community or something, like a different name for that category.
I guess, I mean, meta just felt appropriate because it is the meta information of the group. But yeah, I think moving up the category of channels, or specifically the two, just moving up the category should be.
Yeah, at least if you move it up, like that would be good. Aside from like renaming it.
We'll definitely discuss that that topic.
Yeah, that's
Would anyone else
mostly,
like to?
Most of what I had to say for that.
Okay.
I just wanted to make sure that was brought up.
Yeah. Would anyone else like to make a comment on this topic? Or introduce another one? Oh yeah, Noobzors. You can have the you have the floor.
Okay, so I would just like to make a couple suggestions for data to iSpear to track, so the ranked bot. I think turn order would be interesting, so you can compare how certain decks perform when seated differently. You know, if your blue players are to your right or whatever. So we all have those common conceptions already, but having the data to back that up would be nice. And as well with the win rate, deck specific win rate. So I know some people play multiple decks, and it'd be nice to have the your deck specific win rate, and then also if you could compare that to how your performance with that deck and other versus other pilots, the same deck.
I believe overall people are saying that it's going to be a complicated logging process if we included that additional functionality.
Well, note the additional functionality noted was of the specific deck list, not necessarily the specific player performance. As ASM just said in chat, that is something we can do, the specific player performance, though not necessarily the deck list, because since people have a card off and deck list, that is not something that's necessarily viable.
I think they were talking about the turn order, because you'd have to you'd have to log the specific turn order when you were logging the match. But Astral wanted to comment on the.
No, I think people already mentioned it, right? Like, I feel like making the logging requirements too high is definitely a concern. So I think it's like we need to think more about like if this is the actual like we only have so much complexity we can expect users to like go through with. And I think it's important to think whether or not turn order is the complexity that we actually want the user to go through with. But I think there's like a high bar and we should be wary about doing this. But people are also already talking about this in the town hall channel. So that's why I retracted the why.
Okay. Would anyone else like to comment on this topic or suggest a new topic?
Does anyone have any other questions or feedback related to the ranked system?
Why does it seem like it? So I think we're ready to move on to the next topic.
Seems like it.
So, like general feedback. Would anyone like to? You can type X to suggest a topic. Yeah, we've moved on to general feedback.
Yeah, average, please.
Okay, thank you. Average, you're up.
So I just wanted to fish out some general feedback about the decklist database because it's been launched for a few months now, and I wanted to see if there's any suggestions that you guys have, any ideas for decks that maybe should be on there, or just anything else that you think could improve it as a resource. For example, like for a while, we've been considering something like a suggested tab for new players where it gives a bunch of decks which are simple and more understandable, because as in general I'm trying to focus the development of the resource towards newer players, since I feel like experienced players already know what they're going to be looking for when they open it up. And I just wanted to fish out what you guys thought could help.
So we have Astral with the first reply to the decklist database. And then
yeah, I definitely think that's a really good idea. Like the fact that that you have a Like if you just have a few decks that we think are good and and like relatively easy to play and also decently strong, that'd be a great idea. Because like right now you have 45 decks in the database. There's I have no idea where to start unless I'm reading through all the deck lists.
Yeah.
I was gonna bring up the point that there are a lot of decks in here and it's not clear how to navigate, but you got there first. So
All right. So Worm Lover is the next person. So average Worm Lover suggested highlighting decks that kind of make up the ranked meta on the server.
If I may say something about that, I think it would actually be better to keep it as unbiased as possible in that regard. So even if certain things are popular and ranked, that shouldn't affect like where they go on the decklist database. Just have it be a list of decks that people are playing and brewing.
Yeah, because that would be greatly prone to flavor of the month kind of things, which happen frequently here, and that's not necessarily something we want to represent on a database.
Yeah, I'm in general agreement with the comments being made.
Yeah, if we do want to have something like a ranked meta snapshot, then we can do that. I actually think that the guys from the Birthing Pod podcast, so ASM, Wedge, and Two Hand Touch, are gonna reference the data we get from Asperia regularly in their podcasts. So, yeah, they can do that.
So I believe Maynard wanted to respond to this as well. That's definitely something to consider.
It is
Average, you wanted to.
Oh, sorry.
Oh no, if you wanted to comment on that specifically, go ahead.
Uh, having a high-powered decklist database is definitely something to consider, but I view the decklist database we have right now as more of a list of decks that were made by people in the competitive EDH community, and that's also where a lot of high power lists come from. So depending on what the interpretation of the competitive decklist database should be, they're either already in there or we can indeed make two separate lists.
Thank you. Average, I believe you were the next person to wanted to comment.
Yeah, I don't know if we've moved past this, but I was just going to comment on the idea that I feel like it's pretty important in terms of separating the new player resource into a wiki. I feel like it's pretty important to have the decklist database itself have the resources, or at least a few resources for newer players, since in a lot of instances that's going to be where we want to point them as like a, here's what the format's going to look like. You could pick any of these. Here are the ones which you should probably pick if you're starting out, though. And so I do feel like the new player resource tab would be a better solution than the wiki. And I don't know if that's what you're alluding to, Maynard.
I don't think it's much of an issue to have some overlap in resources. To be honest, I think the database can have some new player recommendations and still be functionally different than a wiki. So I don't think it's necessarily a problem or that they have to be exclusive when it comes to resources. So okay, Wormlover, you have the floor.
That sounds very subjective and not in a good way.
Yeah, that would be a little difficult.
I'd really rather just handpick a handful of decks that we think are good entry points to the format. It's much easier for us that way. And we're not going to have endless discussions about which Hulk variant is harder to play than the other.
Yeah, and that would also allow us to, at least in each archetype, allow us to select a couple that say, if you want to play stacks or something similar, this is the things that if you're a beginner you may want to be looking for, and then so on and so forth for each different general large archetype of deck.
Yeah.
All right. So would someone else like to respond to this topic or would like to introduce a different one? Astral?
There's some discussion inside the town hall chat about like naming conventions for decks. Just, yeah, I'm just like if there's some way of standardizing naming conventions, because suppose I like if I just take a deck and then I change 3 cards in it, should that be a new deck or is it deck and for ranked purposes?
I think everyone has to decide that for themselves in a way. It's
We've
not really
discussed.
easy to control.
Yeah, we've discussed naming conventions among like mentors and moderators, but it's kind of difficult to tell other people to name their decks a certain way.
Yeah, I think it comes down to kind of like the legacy problem, where if you look at things that are like legacy deck names, right, where you have things like Tin Fins, Spanish Inquisition, Fruit Loops, and other things like that, and you end up with this kind of weird naming dichotomy, and it's very hard to fix, especially in older formats, kind of in quotes, where you have such a wider range of cards. It's not very easy to fix the naming dichotomies for something that is already there like that.
Now, when we're making resources for people, we can agree on a structure or convention that we could use in making those resources among mentors and mods or people looking to produce content. But that would be something that would need to be discussed further to determine what kind of system for the naming that we would settle on. But yeah, we can't tell your average player, what they should name their deck, but there is a way that we can create a kind of standard for produced content. So that could be something to look into.
Would anyone else like to elaborate on this, or can we move to a new topic? I think we have a few people that want to start a new one. Namely, I think I saw an X from Mendidef earlier, and Leptis also has one.
An X from Leptis and who else? All right. Okay. Cool. So we'll start with Leptis, and then we've got Maynard after that.
All right. So this was also something that I asked half a year ago in the last town hall, but I would be personally very curious to hear your guys that are not moderators or mentors for any kind of feedback on mentors. At least from my personal perspective, mentors in the Discord. Our goals and practices are pretty clear in the subreddit by helping people in the Mentor Mondays and so on and so on. But what do you feel about our activities in the Discord side of things? Do you think it's good that there are people who you can ask things if they're online, or do you feel that it's hard to approach us and ask things? Do you feel that mentor role is on the Discord is completely unnecessary? I would be personally curious to hear you guys' opinions on or just on hearing any feedback that you might have on things that we could do better, or things that we have done well, or and so on and so on. But yeah.
So if anyone would like to add on to this, please reply with a Y.
Also, to add to the former, I have not seen the poll answers. I didn't really take a look at them before the town hall. That Maynard has profoundly taken a way bigger look than I have. So yeah, that's why I asked the question. And I reckon those were morely on the subreddit side of things. So yeah.
Maynard, you want to say something?
I've noticed that a lot of mentors and even some mods who, I guess they don't all have the mentor role. About half of the team is like mostly inactive. And I know in the past you guys have mentioned pushing mentors to be more active or asking more inactive ones to try to help where they can. And I think we can, we don't really necessarily need to have people who can't, currently contribute step down, but looking to onboard new ones could help alleviate the kind of load that's being placed on the ones who are active.
Maybe a good point to mention that generally mentor applications are always possible. If you think you do a good job as a mentor and you'd like to be one, it's always good to let us know. We can't promise you, of course, that you're going to become a mentor, but having, let's say, a pool of people that we know would like to fill the position to step up to the job if we need them is certainly helpful from an administrative standpoint.
Yeah, thank you for that comment, Lobster. So, would anyone like to comment on this topic as well, or suggest another one?
As a reminder, the overarching topic right now is general feedback for the Discord. So if you've got something to say in that regard, please type an X, even if it's not related to specifically mentors.
I think, should we just move on to the next topic?
Yeah, let's do that. Other stuff that isn't directly related to the Discord or the subreddit, if there's anything you'd like to bring up, literally anything that's worth discussing in your opinion, then now's your time.
News or had a question? Yes, that is still a work in progress. It's just a matter of collating the content, like finishing the content and putting it out, basically.
So to answer the question that Noobzor asked, which was in the last town hall, there was talk of the website in development. Is that it's still a work in progress, or has that been abandoned? Currently, as far as I'm aware, it still is a work in progress. It's mostly just at this point we're writing articles and getting the main baseline set up, since we already have the domain and a couple other things already acquired and organized. We just need to ensure that the content is the level at which we would like for it to be published.
Yeah. Did people not hear me? Hello?
Yeah, we didn't hear anything at all from you.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. I was like, I said, I basically said that, so that's fine. So, yeah, any generalized questions, concerns, comments?
Yes, there will be.
Just in case you missed it, Lobster did say yes, there will be an overview of what has been discussed, I believe, just for clarification.
So does any one of you have any other questions or feedback they'd like to bring up?
Yeah, I think Maynard brings up a great point and a great kind of closing topic. If you guys want to make content and you need help doing it, we have plenty of people who would be happy to do that. There are lots of ideas for projects, and we need lots of different resources. But this is a voluntary service, and it is also a hobby. So, working within the community, working with people is more enjoyable, is more recreational, and so feel free to reach out to people. Feel free to record your games with your competitive play group. This is a community that we can build together, and I think it will be a better community if we do build it together.
Yeah, we are almost closing in on the 2-hour mark. I think we've discussed plenty of things. There's certainly going to be stuff to do and stuff to talk about. This is your last chance. If you want to add anything to the discussion, talk about anything that's relevant to the server, the subreddit, or the CDH community at large, because otherwise we will be done for today.
Okay, yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah, looks like there's nothing else for now. So thank you all for joining Town Hall. Special thanks to IMOG for directing the conversation. Thank you all for giving feedback, asking questions, being here, being a part of this community. We all want to see this be the best place it can be. We all want all of each other to enjoy competitive EDH as much as we can. At the end of the day, fun is important, and I think we all want to have fun here, and we want this to be a nice place, and we want it to stay a nice place in the future. And that's where feedback and help and questions and things like creating content comes into play. And those are things that all of you can do. And with this, once more, thank you all for joining. This has been the Town Hall.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. I hope everyone has a great day.
You too.
If anyone here wants to join me, I'm going to be moving over to general discussion to work on the decklist database. So if anyone had any feedback or wanted to get some words in that they couldn't recently, then I'll be hanging out there.
Just come and listen.